Hello, innovators, and welcome to another episode of the Heitland Show, where I connect the dots of innovation and entrepreneurship with my guests. Today's episode is a slightly different episode where I meet again with Sanjay Bhargava, who joined me previously for episode number 117 Disruptive Innovation. In this episode, we talk about a concept that should be interesting for every innovator, the concept of a global poverty elimination lab. Please welcome back to the show, Sanjay Bhargava. Hello, Sanjay. Welcome back to the show. Great to see you again. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Hans, and thank you for having me again. It's a
Yeah.
privilege.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to explore something completely different. So, for anyone listening or watching this is a different episode. Sanjay has been on the podcast. And if you're interested in more details about Sanjay, go to the episode 117, where we talked about disruption. Let me check what the episode was called. So, Disruptive Innovation was episode number 117. And we did a big introduction of who Sanjay is. Today, we will not do that. We go straight into the topic. So, one big topic, Sanjay, is you talked, and we talked a little bit about this, but I'm really interested in exploring that a global poverty elimination lab, difficult word,
Yeah.
and we can use the short form now, which is GPEL.
Yeah.
Tell us more. What is it? What's the vision? What are you hoping to do with that?
Yeah. So, hence, this is something that has been intriguing me for a very long time because trying to eradicate or eliminate poverty in the world, which could be poverty of not just material poverty, but poverty of the mind, poverty of the body, is to me one of the coolest problems on earth. Now, people like Elon Musk and all are trying to make the species interplanetary, which is also an extremely cool problem. And Elon's a friend. So, I think that's really great that they are working on it. But to me, why do I call this the coolest problem on earth? So, I call this the coolest problem because the thing is that all these other problems, you're dealing with atoms, they follow the laws of physics and all that. But humans don't follow laws,
Yeah.
right? So it makes it even more difficult, to try and get humans to get enthused about, being poverty free is a big challenge, right? In terms of how do you actually do it. So uh, I've been struggling with this, and I must say that this GPEL that we've come up with is, to me, a starting point. It's an experiment. But the good news is that this GPL, which I'll talk about a little bit to explain what it is, it's actually in. I'm now currently based in Mumbai, in India.
Hmm.
So, a company in Mumbai has actually incorporated a GPL, and the first website should be launched in a couple of days. Okay, and I'm going to start off by saying that I would encourage anyone who hears this to join the GPL wherever you are, in whichever country, whatever your age, doesn't matter. You could join it because then you could get a front row seat to this concept, of GPL, and you could see, maybe you'll contribute to helping eradicate poverty in India, maybe in your country, maybe in other countries. You could set up GPLs. So just like venture capital was a concept which was quite new at some stage, I don't know when, but the thing is that this GPEL is like uh, a village global capital. So there is a village global capital, and probably hence will put a link to village global VC. Sorry,
Yeah.
village global VC uh, in the notes. But here I've tried to take Village Global VC and think of it as think of GPL as Village Global VC 2.0.
Hmm.
And I hope that if this concept or modifications of this concept of either Village Global VC or GPL or something totally new, that we need at least 100 such things around the world in there. So this could just be the first.
Yeah.
So before I jump into actually explaining what GPL is, hence, do you have any questions?
Yeah. So what is interesting for me, And the interesting part is when you have been last time on episode number 117, I'm always asking my guests, what is a problem you would like to work with, or what is a project? And you said this basically last year, that this is a problem you're kind of pondering already. So it's good that you take this now into an action where you support this movement. Lifting it up from a visionary perspective, if I understand you right, is you want to get rid of poverty globally on a total world, and building more an ecosystem rather than a clear way of doing it, if I understand you right.
Yes, yes. No, I think the solutions will come, and
Yeah,
I think they'll come from what I call unicorn plus builders, which I'll explain a little later,
yeah,
right? Because these GPLs are not donor funded, right?
yeah.
Because I think this is a very big different way of thinking, right? Because everybody thinks that I should remove poverty because it's a good thing to do. It's altruistic. I should have, I feel very bad about all these poor people and all those kind of things, which is true. But the thing is that this is also a business opportunity. I think the first person who mentioned this was a professor called C.K. Prahlad, who said, there's a fortune at the bottom of the pyramid. Okay.
Yeah.
So, just building on those concepts, I think that, there are the next Elon Musks or the next Sergey Brins or Larry Pages or, whoever, Reed Hastings or Reed Hoffman or whatever, they're there. It's just like, and they're in all kinds of countries. They may be in Europe, they may be in India, they may be in China, and so earlier, 20 years ago, all these companies, they were all new companies. They
Mm.
took advantage of the internet and they became $100 billion plus companies. My hypothesis is that 20 years later, now, there are all these discontinuities like AI, blockchain, robotics, cloud, whatever it is. So there will be new companies, but these will not all be US companies, and they will be $1 trillion market cap companies,
Mm.
right? So now, how can we actually create an ecosystem for this? Now, the surprising thing here, and at least in my thought, is that the answer lies with each of us, whatever our capacity,
Yeah,
okay, becoming more engaged in making the world a better place, right? Because around the world, and I don't think this is only in India, around the world, people have abdicated their role in making the world a better place to their leaders,
mm,
right? And this, I think, is a mistake. Yes, you want your leaders, you want to elect them, and you want them to do whatever it is, if you're in a democracy or if you are in a dictatorship, whatever. But it may be a little harder. But the point is, you do want to get your voice heard,
yeah,
right? And how you want your collective voice heard. But it's not only shouting, your voice, but it's also listening to other people's voice, right? And today we have the technology, we have the tools, we have the platforms which can make all of this possible, right? So if you sort of join this platform, and hopefully this platform will help you increase your own prosperity,
mm,
whether it's mind, body, wealth, okay, your own prosperity. The second thing that it can help you do is that, if, let's say, you're a researcher or you're a thought leader, like I'm going to join as an individual, and then I'm a thought leader, or you're a mentor, you want to invest in these unicorn plus possibilities, and you want to guide them as well as make money through by getting in early. Okay, so you could play many roles, but if you are a researcher, maybe this platform will, like, you send in a white paper or an article to the Harvard Business Review. Here you could send in your article. Maybe they'll edit it, whatever it is, make it tangible, make it bite-sized for the instant gratification world. In there, maybe translate it into many languages, so that if there are lots of people who have joined the platform from all over the world, uh, then language is not a barrier, and stuff like that. So you, as a researcher, would get very wide visibility for whatever your idea. like I have an idea of cheap credit. Now, one of the reasons I'm kind of joining this platform is maybe then there'll be visibility for this idea and somebody will work on it, right? I'm like not a PhD or a tenured professor or anything, but I'm at the stage where I'm saying, hey, I don't want to do any heavy lifting anymore. Right? So, and building a unicorn plus company is very definitely huge heavy lifting, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to put this idea there and says, if it has merit, somebody will do it, right? So this whole global poverty elimination lab has these components where there is a citizen. Now, you may be a citizen of any country. You could join this lab if you are a voter in. So voters in initially probably this lab will only have voters from India, but it could have voters from Spain, from Germany, from USA, wherever. So you could give your voter identity and so on and so forth, and of course privacy and all will be protected. And then you could see what people around your community are talking, and you could elect leaders who give you measurable time bound real outcomes,
Yeah.
right, in some fashion. So one is that you can join purely as a citizen and as a person who is curious, right, who wants to learn, and you can upvote things that excite you, right, articles that excite you. So I think I'm not very familiar with social media and all that kind of stuff, but someone says like Reddit or something like that, you can upvote
Yeah.
and whatever. So uh, so these kind of things. So there is a role for every citizen in the world to join a GPEL. Okay, in my opinion, and hopefully there'll be many GPLs which are set up by various people. Okay, so that is the role for citizens. Then there is a role for researchers, right? Like, so if I am, like I have this idea of, how you can get rid of pollution in Delhi, which is a problem that many people are working on. I have an idea, right? Now, I don't know how to get this across to people. I have no idea, right? Like I publish it, I write something, 10 people on LinkedIn like it, but how is this going to get across, right? And how
Yeah.
do people know, right? So maybe this platform can help in terms of this thing. And then you have policymakers. Now policymakers could be bureaucrats, they could be politicians, they could be judiciary, they could be regulators. So even policymakers can join the platform, right? And because ultimately, if they want to do the job that they were elected for or they were appointed for, because they are supposed to be public servants, then they could look for input from the public, whom they're supposed to serve, right? And they could say, hey, I'm trying to work on this immense problem, right? Like I would welcome suggestions from you guys, like in some of those kind of things. So you have the policy makers, and then like I'm now very enthused about a concept which I call district as a lab. Now, this district is just a term. Like India has 750 districts. The term may be provinces, maybe some whatever, some geographical thing which is not too small but not too big,
Yeah.
uh, either, where it can be a laboratory to test your ideas which are going to become global, right? So if now, so typically this is how it works in India. It may work differently in other places, but if a government say wants to have an education platform for its schools, right? So it issues what is called a tender, and then people bid for that tender, and then the government pays money. So there's use of public money to do this. Okay. Now, what happens is that if the government says, and the government then owns the IP of this platform or whatever,
Yeah.
but the government has no reason to own this IP because they're not building a global platform, so it's a waste, right? So now, if they say, on the other hand, like, okay, we are issuing a request for proposal, now you have to have like at least 100 crores, which I think would be like, you divide by 75 or whatever, and then you will get Indian rupees, I mean, US dollars. So a fairly large amount of capital. Okay. And if you are a new company, a new co or whatever, which has this kind of capital, then you can apply. If you don't have the capital, but you have a great idea, you can still apply. And if your idea makes sense and how you're going to implement it and all that kind of stuff, and you're willing to give performance guarantees, then we'll give you a license. If you don't have the capital, then we'll give you 90 days to raise the capital, right? But we will enable you to solve this problem in this particular district, right? So the district doesn't tell you how you want this problem solved, right? But the district also says, hey, by the way, because you're building this global thing and you're saying you're going to make $2 trillion market cap, then I want 1% of your equity because I'm enabling you, right? So why shouldn't I? So now you have a district actually making money instead of spending money.
Yeah.
And I think governments around the world, they have a big problem in terms of they would rather make money than spend money. I also would rather make money than spend money. So that is, I think, common for everyone, right? So there is this concept of a district as a lab, and then that fits into the unicorn plus builders. So if you are trying to build $1 trillion company, right? Then people like me who have built, been there in PayPal, maybe we have some value to add. Things have changed. We are very old. Technologies have changed, etc. But maybe we have a few tips here and there which can help you. Maybe there are other mentors and things like that. So, this Village Global VC, they basically take 7% of your company for $150,000. But then you get to learn a lot. There is a cohort of companies. There are people like Bill Gates, Reid Hoffman, Mark Zuckerberg, and various things who are like thought leaders. And there are a bunch of mentors. So if you feel that this is going to be useful for you, right, then you will do this. If you can build $1 trillion company without this, and you're doing this calculation saying 7% of my company is going to be worth so much, why the hell should I give it? That's also a valid point, right? So you can think about it. But my main thing is that if a district as a lab comes across, right, then you will solve the biggest problem for company entrepreneurs, unicorn plus builders who want to build these $1 trillion market companies, and that is getting critical mass.
Yeah.
And having a lab where you can prove the solution so that then you can scale it from one district to 750 districts in India and then maybe districts around the world, right? So that is invaluable. With very, very small amounts of capital, you can do quite a lot. So instead of, spending huge amounts of capital on customer acquisition, at least that's what people do in India. They sponsor cricket tournaments, they do this, that, the other, whatever, trying to build a brand name. It's much better. I mean, like, so if you get 1 million customers, users, and it sort of costs you maybe $100 because there's this lifetime value or whatever people say, yeah, $100, private equity will give you that money, then it's going to be $100 million, right? Which you're going to spend, right? So the value of that critical mass is huge, right? Plus the fact that you're going to be able to test in a real environment.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's really all I had about this. That's the concept. I think people around the world, especially universities, corporates, consulting firms, should think about setting up GPLs or joining GPLs or whatever, and then, we need to create an environment for the people like the next Elon Musks and so on and so forth, to have an ecosystem where it helps them create these things because the world needs these companies.
Yeah. Yeah. What I like about this, so one thing is it's solving a very large problem in the whole world. The other thing, the mechanism itself solves it already, because you said before we started recording, small money from a lot of people will help you to get a lot of money. So it's eliminating poverty by doing that for yourself as well, so you benefit and the community benefits and the world benefits. So it's like this win-win-win-win system built into that ecosystem, which I like very much. And I mean, that's close to my heart. It's about the people, like you said as well. People make the difference if you put the right people together on a global scale, starting from the get-go, that we say this is something that's global. You do this in maybe in a district or in a country lab, but with the perspective of that should be solving the global problem, not just only the country. I think that's also important to directly think about scale, not just, hey, how can we do this for 20, 30, 50, or 600,000 people? Really, how can we do that on a global level straight away from the beginning? Very interesting.
So one other point that these GPLs, they should collaborate with each other, because
Yeah.
this problem is so difficult, so challenging, right? That some of these companies, if they become portfolio companies, may not become $1 trillion companies, but some of them will not become zero, right? They may become $1 billion company, or like 500,000, 500 million company, or whatever,
Yeah.
which is also nice. I mean, if you're getting in on the ground floor, and it even becomes like a $10 million company, you're going to do okay, right?
Yeah.
So
It's not too
I mean,
bad.
yeah, it's like hitting a single instead of hitting a home run.
Yeah.
It's fine, right? So, but the whole stuff is that, by collaborating, by finding out various things, people can really benefit in terms of, making the world a better place and getting recognized if you are like a great researcher. And of course, there's this whole satisfaction of uh, having accomplished something
Yeah.
in there, which after a certain amount of money doesn't matter anymore, right? It's like, the whole thing of, like, like solving puzzles, and the more difficult the puzzle is, the more joy I get out of solving it, right? And I think there are plenty of people like that.
Yeah.
Like if I look at Wordle, I think a lot of people do a Wordle a day now. Right? They kind of, because they like solving the puzzle. So this is a very intricate puzzle. I think the biggest jigsaw in the world. If you can solve it, more power to you.
Yeah, and I think to that point, if we can solve it, so
Yeah,
it's really the collaboration aspect is very, very important.
true.
So, from a call to action perspective, you mentioned that there's already the first one is maybe even open already when this podcast episode goes live. So, where can people find what's going on right now? Where can people sign up? Where can people link more or discuss with you, connect to you?
Yeah. So one of the things is that, yes. So I think in the next 10, 15 days at the latest, the first version of the first GPL in the world will be open, and hence we'll have that URL in the notes. If you
Yeah.
follow me on LinkedIn, you'll have that, etc., etc. Okay. So that is one, right? So the best thing, like I said, from a call to action is to just join and see what happens. You can contribute, you can be a lurker, you can be an active contributor, whatever it is, right? And see what happens. Then, maybe like in the end of May or something, after a certain amount of time, we'll see what progress there has been, because there's some very interesting stuff going on in India. Like one of the states has issued a tender on how they want consultants to help them move from like 230 billion or so to 1 trillion uh, in 5 years, right?
Mm.
So this GPL may apply with a few other people as a consortium. They may win this, they may not, and we'll see. So that'll also be available. Then, how many people actually join? How many citizens around the world join? From how many countries they are?
Mm.
Would be another interesting stat to see, right? So one is just joining this thing. Now, if there are people who do want to connect with me, in April and May, I'm going to be first half of May. I'm going to be in the North American type of time zone. I'm going to be in USA, Canada, Mexico, etc. And I'm really on vacation, but like this is a passion, so I can make time, but to have some conversations. But I really want to know why we should have a conversation, right? Like, and
Yeah.
how is it going to be valuable to you? And so like if there are 30-minute conversations, there's some exchange of emails before and all that kind of stuff. You've seen some of the stuff that I've written, etc., because you may relate to what I think, or you may not. Then if you want to ask me something, I'm very happy, because I will learn something from you. It's not that you will learn something from me. It's two ways.
Yeah.
I may learn something from you. So I've already got some meetings set up, with people in these places in New York, in the Bay Area, and Mexico. Not Mexico, sorry. I don't know people in Mexico, but in
Canada.
yeah. But maybe I'll meet some people in Mexico. Who knows? In there, and we'll see. So I see this as a very long journey, because like I said, this is the toughest problem on earth, right?
Mm.
But it can be solved, right? I don't expect this to be solved quickly. I think it'll take at least 10, 15, 20 years where we can say that, okay, today, if 10% of the people are poverty free, and I don't think it exceeds 10%, because you may have a lot of money, but you're not poverty free if you
Mm.
don't have, your body is not okay, your mind is not okay, etc., etc. So maybe it's not more than 10%. But if we can move that to 70, 80%, that would be huge,
Yeah.
in terms of this thing. But I think it will be slow. It's a very complex problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why it's so interesting to solve. Really
Yeah.
looking forward, and I will definitely join.
Yeah.
As you know me already, so
Yeah.
I'm definitely supporting that, and maybe combining that with one of the ideas I have, opening something up in Spain. So, but let's talk
Okay.
about that offline.
Yeah.
Sanjay, was a pleasure, and I'm a big supporter of this. So everyone who is listening to this, we will put the links to what's happening into the show notes. You're welcome to connect to Sanjay directly or to me on LinkedIn, and we keep you up to date what's going on. Maybe we schedule a follow up to this in end of May, so we know how it's moving and get a little bit feedback as well into the community.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Hans. And
Thank you very much.
together, let's try and make something amazing happen. Not just you and me, but the world.
Yes.
Everyone. We need it, in all this sort of little bit depressing times, with high
Exactly.
inflation, with Ukraine and Russia and so on and so forth. But these are sometimes, after these kind of events, you have very positive events if you look at history. So I'm
Yeah.
not in any way despondent.
No, we need to think positive and change the world together.
Yeah.
Sanjay, thank you very much for being on the show. It was a pleasure having you back. Thanks for listening to today's episode. You will find the links and resources in the show notes of this episode. If you would like to support the podcast, the most impactful thing you can do is subscribing to the show on any of the podcasting platforms and give me a review. This will help me to reach more innovators around the world and bring some of you into the show. If you have any question to the guest or want to engage with me, feel free to reach out to me on social media and contact me there.